let's clarify here, guys. I'll record a separate clip for anyone that watches the VOD of this. This is recorded during a stream. Spent about an hour farming these boxes. They are way worse than everyone said that they would be. Basically, there's this trick that we can do with with the rune crafting, where we essentially craft one of these items that makes it so that our runes don't break for an hour, and then we use it in combination with the dabbler or rune. And then in the runic anvil crafting table thing, like the new table, there's this buff that we can get, which makes it so that when we destroy ore, we have a chance of getting Trove of Wonder boxes, but we also have a chance of getting an Encrusted Runic Trunk. So everyone was telling me like, oh man, you should take advantage of this. You know, this is totally intentional, which obviously it wasn't. People were getting like 900 of these in an hour. I had my suspicion that that was not intentional. And sure enough, it ended up getting nerfed into the ground. And we're going to see firsthand nerfed how far, because obviously we've got 57 of these in an hour. So these resources have better be worthwhile. Now, as a comparison, here's what I got so far. 127 of the whatever this is, got a decent amount of the deep stone just from doing all of the ore mining and stuff, but whatever. Essentially, these boxes are supposed to drop resources that are required for mystic gear. So we can also keep track, because of this mod being as gigachad as it is, we can see how much items we ended up getting. I just want to see what items we get out of this first and foremost. So far, it's just essence, which is pretty atrocious, but let's just open all of them and then we'll see. We got a couple different essence: ink bladder, lichen stone, chunk of runic ore, depth sands, fishbone, soul of the depths, pyric essence, runic key fragment, and 2 depth cores. So as a comparison, the depth cores that we need is 250, and I can get the same amount of depth cores that I got out of those boxes within what, 1 5-star? But I did get one of the souls of the depths, which I could also get by going into the delves. The thing is, the devs have this weird obsession with trying to make these things take like an absurd amount of time, not realizing realistically like just how not fun this is. Because that's my argument, is if I was at least getting enough resources out of it, okay, cool. If they at least had it so that you would get enough items out of those runic trunks, then I could understand why they're so rare. But typical of the devs, they see something that players are taking advantage of, and rather than nerf the amount of boxes you get, but up the resources in the boxes, instead they just nerf the amount of boxes that you get. So they are universally a waste of time. That is one aspect of the game that they've added in that has no purpose. None at all. There is no reason to waste your time doing that. So good job, devs. You just made an aspect that somebody worked hours on worthless. The whole runic anvil thing, waste of time. So the buffs that you want to actually get out of the runic anvil instead are going to be the ones that relate to dungeon farming and all of that stuff, because then at the very least you can end up grinding these resources while doing the fun aspect of the game, which is just dungeon farming. I don't know, man. It's just, I really don't understand this whole idea of like someone got paid to work on like the rune anvil and all of the ore and all of these new boxes and stuff like that, and then to have that like completely whisked away because the devs don't play this game or understand how drop rates work. Like, why would I ever do that instead of just farming? At the very least, if they ended up making it so that it was beneficial for me to farm ore while I was dungeon grinding, and maybe that was their intention originally with how much of the boxes that you would end up getting, is maybe they were trying to make it worthwhile. So you throw a couple bombs, while you're doing 5 stars. But the fact that they ended up nerfing it so much is just like I think that they nerfed it too hard rather than just, maybe halfway, maybe even a quarter But this is like ridiculous, dude. But the way that I would go about it is rather than nerf the boxes, how about you take a look at the fact that players are trying to take advantage of these boxes? You know, like kind of similar to what we were talking about earlier is why are players duping so much? If they think that the content's not fair, they're going to take advantage of glitches. And so with these boxes, I kind of feel like they should have nerfed them maybe about halfway, but then to counteract that and make it so that the boxes weren't still too powerful, they should have just increased the resources we get out of the actual like 5 stars and stuff. Because then it's like a nice balance between, well, what aspect of the game do you enjoy? Mining, delves, or the 5-star dungeons? At least if they gave us the option, but instead they kind of like just completely destroy it and break it down into the ground to a paste that there's just no point in doing it, you know? Delves are definitely better for those boxes if you have the right setup. Oh, I'm sure it is. That's the thing is I'm sure that the delves are probably the most efficient way of getting mystic gear. But my argument is why? Like they spent all this effort making U15/U12 and the new 5-star dungeons and stuff. And arguably, I would rather do the same 5-star dungeon hundreds of times to get mystic gear versus going into those godforsaken delves. And it's like the worst biome in the game. Like the whole idea of, oh, it's underwater is kind of a cool concept, but then the execution is just like, oh, now I'm just getting knocked back all over the place and I have slow fall. That's not fun. It's taking away control from the player in a game that is at its highest point because of the fact that we have so much control. Just ignore the fact that mystic gear exists and wait for it to be out of gear crafting. Yeah, that's true. Yep. That's why they mentioned that it's going to come out of gear crafting, because it might even come out of gear crafter vaults in the future. That's 100% true. Because yeah, as far as grinding mystic gear, it's impossible. Straight up, it's impossible with the current rates and the fact that you need like so much of those trunk boxes. That's what we'll do long term then. There's not even much of a point. Like I'll still, just for the sake of variety, I'll still work on getting like this just because it gives me something to do. But then as far as like mystic gear, I'm just going to wait for them to either like fix this or yeah, like when we get the next update that just makes them drop out of gear vaults or something, you know, like it's just going to make something a lot easier. You know, when that update hits, they'll give us like Mystic 2. Because again, like if this guy at least sold the encrusted boxes, then at least it would make sense in my brain, like why they're trying to add so much like perceived value to the boxes.